All right, well, good afternoon. We're out here at the Beef Cattle Unit on campus, and here with us today is Dr. Randy Perry. He is our department chair and also our beef cattle specialist. So we thought we'd take some time today to take a walking tour of the unit and talk about some of those things that we're going to get into in the next section in Chapter 4 with horses and larger animals. You're going to start with your section on reviewing the Temple Grandin movie and learning more about Dr. Temple Grandin and what she does. So some of the things that we do here at the Beef Cattle Unit at Fresno State are very much like the teachings that you will learn about what she does. As you're going to learn, Dr. Temple Grandin is a professor of animal science at Colorado State University, and her specialty is behavioral science. And she also teaches a lot about autism. She is autistic and has put a lot of work and time and effort into the study of animal behavior and animal welfare. So we came out to the unit today to look at some of those things that we do from her teachings and really some of the practical things that we do with food animals, beef cattle today. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Perry, and thanks for having us out to the beef unit today.
Well, thanks for coming out. So beef cattle, unlike some of the units you students will go to, if we do things with small animals, like we actually have some goats here today, which we don't normally have at the beef unit, but those are goats for a class. And they're actually going to start synchronizing estrus in those goats this afternoon. But animals like sheep or goats or hogs, then those are animals that they can physically grab a hold of and do whatever kind of procedure that they're trying to do with them. That's not the case for beef cattle. Beef cattle are big enough, they're strong enough. Most of the things we do, unless we're doing something with a baby calf, which we handle by hand out in the pasture, tagging the calf or doing something else at birth, pretty much any other time we work beef cattle, they have to work through a facility. This is our main working area here, and it's designed with Temple Grandin concepts. If you followed any of her stuff, we got a circular tub in the back. That's something that she recommends. Is most of our stuff is circular, solid side, so animals can't see out. That distracts animals, things like that. That's in our lead up. And the other thing you see out front is a mat that is designed so animals don't slip when they come out of this chute. And this chute that we have is a relatively new chute for us. It's a silencer chute. And it's probably the best one on the market, and it was designed with assistance from Temple, and it's designed with a lot of concepts. You can see these louvers on the side, and that's the same way. Those things are designed so the animals can't see us, the handlers, or the person operating the chute. So this chute is really good. It works well. It's safe. We got what we call a preg checking cage there in the back, where there's no way that animals can get in on us if we're going to do things with the animal. The name silencer is everywhere where there's an impact spot in this chute, there's nothing that's metal to metal. So you see, like in these things, there's plastic around that, and so there's no metal that's banging or anything like that. And so that's where the name silencer comes from, is this chute is very, very quiet in its operation. And that really helps a lot for the animals to flow through the facility, because the sound will distract them quite a bit. But we've learned a lot from horse people, learned a lot from Temple in terms of the impact that animals can have, what we call imprinting. Horse people have known about this for a long time, and we've learned that from Temple and from other species, is that when we first work these animals, it's important that we work them in the proper way. We never bring animals up to a chute by themselves, because these animals have never been alone. And so if we're to bring them up here by themselves, they're going to be much more nervous. So we want to try to do these things and keep the animals quiet as we can. The other thing that Temple recommends that we've never went to, and we should, is the first time that animals come through here, what she'd like to see us do is just let these calves walk through the facility and don't do anything with them. And then they wouldn't necessarily associate this squeeze chute with pain. And it's something we should do. Problem is we're all busy and we don't usually have time to just walk them through the chute without not doing anything to them. But it would work well if we did it. And if we had a real problem, we would do it. In fact, I've run some cattle of my own with some other people, and we had a scale that we used to weigh cattle, and we always had a problem. It was going from sunlight into dark, and those calves would really fight going on this scale. And so we've learned over the years, we walk those calves through the scale the first time, then bring them back around. We take them through there one by one, and they go through there a lot easier because they've walked through there once.
So Dr. Perry,
nothing bad has happened to them.
So the concept, and really globally when we think about animal welfare, you know, what we do on the farm and the use of the squeeze chute and the decisions that we make are always for the health and the welfare of the livestock. So if you decide that your relationship with livestock is to consume them, if your choice is protein, then it behooves us to be the best stewards of the land and the livestock that we can. So all the things that we do out here are for the health and welfare of the animals. So it's really understanding why, because you look at this and go, wow, does it really take that? But then think about the size of the animal. How much does a cow weigh, Dr. Perry?
Well, they can weigh up around 14, 15, 16. We've had some cows, big cows, that'll push close to a ton.
So you can't grab them like a cat or a dog. So facilities like this need to be friendly so they can come in and also be able to take care of an animal of that size because you are vaccinating them. You know, those things that are for their health and welfare. Very important.
Yeah. And people don't realize the power of these animals. They can kill you in a heartbeat. And it's not that we're afraid of them. We just have to be aware of that. And so, you know, a lot of the people that animal welfare concerns, the animal welfare groups have made all of us a lot better producers. Animal rights, that's a little different. I don't have a problem with their own opinion. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but that goes a little beyond what most of us. But there's tremendous amount of common ground between producers and animal welfares. You know, we're trying to do the right things for the animals. In the beef industry, the industry I work in, you know, we get pretty high marks from Temple Grandin. And we have a zero tolerance for people who don't do things the right way. If they're not willing to take care of animals in the right way, we don't want them in our industry. That's just a simple fact. And we're not saying we don't have any bad apples, we do. But if they're not going to take care of animals and do the things that they have to do, then we don't want them. And it's a concern I have with some people that try to dictate to us as to how we should do things that don't have any experience, because a lot of times they don't know. And so, you know, that they think, well, we should never use hot shot. We got a hot shot over there. We use it very, very selectively. Temple Grandin would recommend that. Some people have taken hot shots totally out of the people's hands. And that's not the best, but you don't want to overuse them. So sometimes these people really don't have enough, their intentions are good, but they don't have enough experience with the animals to understand that what it takes to get things done. And so, you know, we have a cow in the chute that doesn't want to come forward. She's a 1,400-pound cow. Some of the animal welfares think that we can say, hey, old Bessie, why don't you walk up here? Well, the reality is old Bessie's not going to come. And so maybe some of them have all day to waste it there and wait for Bessie to walk in. We don't. We're busy people. And it's not that we're not trying to do the right things for the animals, but the only way we're going to get Bessie up sometime is to go back and give her just a little teeny pop with that hot shot. She'll come right forward. We're not trying to abuse her in any way. But if we don't use the hot shot, then what we're going to do is twist her tail. Twist her tail, the problem with that is we may break her tail or injure her tail. And then the pain associated with that injury could stay with her for hours or days or weeks or a month, whatever it is. So we're much better off just to give her a little teeny slight shock that'll cause her to move forward, and then, you know, we can get the things done we have to do to the animal.
And also the rest of the animals that may be in the chute. What happens if you have a lot of them that are being vaccinated or worked with in any way, that if old Bessie decides she doesn't want to go through, then what about the health and the welfare of the rest of the animals? If she comes up or tries to turn around, then you've got, kind of a global mess going on. So, you've got to make sure that you make the right decision, again, for the best care of the animal.
Yeah. And like with calves, you'll never see us pull a hot shot out. Never, ever. Never do it. And, calves, we can physically get in behind a calf, push them to the chute. And that's the first time we're working with this animal. So if we were to pull out a hot shot, we'd be imprinting them in the wrong way. Now, our cows that have been through here a number of times, they know better. And so they're no different than anybody else. Sometimes you don't want to let them get away with something that they shouldn't get away with. So we got to get the cow in at the same time. We'll walk back, and next time we walk back, she's going to walk forward. And because they'll have a memory as to what happened. And some people don't handle them the way they should. And we always try to handle animals as easy as we can when they get to the chute, and then that way the animals don't fight the chute as much.
I know that we talked a little bit before class about fence line weaning, some of the things that we do out on the farm. So I know you wanted to take a walk out there and talk about the weaning process and some other things. So
Yep.
We'll take a walk down the lane and talk a little bit more about what it is that we do here at the beef unit. Something actually to note as she walks away from us, and I'm going to ask you to recall this in a little bit, is so think about the difference between beef cattle and dairy cattle. And the reason I'm asking you to do this right now is we're here. We're going to go to the dairy in a little bit, and we're going to look at those cattle. And so one of the things from an animal welfare standpoint that a lot of folks, maybe with an untrained eye, say is that dairy cattle look bony and skinny and that they look like they are not well fed. And so remember this. The job, the objective of her, right? We're not going to use her for animal protein, but a steer or a heifer that we are going to process and use for meat, that's what I'm talking about. But I'm asking you to look at her body type. So if you look at her, and then when we go to the dairy and you compare her, her job is to make meat. Right? So her job genetically is to make meat. So she's going to be more full, more well-rounded, more muscular, right? Whereas a dairy cow is going to be more angular made. The dairy cow's job is very different than a beef cow's job. The dairy cow's job is to put all of her energy, everything she does, into the production of milk. So their type and kind is very, very different. And so when we're feeding them, we're doing very different things, but the expectation and the product is very different. So to the untrained eye, I just want to bring that up as we kind of move through the cattle part of these units. Dr. Perry?
So in these lots here, these are some bulls that are being developed for breeding purposes, what we call breeding bulls. But if you look in these lots, we've got some shade trees, and then we've also got some shades that we can drag around. And so most all these cattle are shaded up. Now, black animals absorb a lot more heat than the white ones do. So I don't know if you can look down here, farther down in one of these lots, and it's pretty well clear cut there. As the black cattle in those pens are shaded up, then you can see some white bulls that are out in the lot. And so even though today is hot enough that, for us, we're feeling a little bit of heat, those white cattle are still plenty comfortable. If they were experiencing any kind of heat stress, they would be up in those shades. So we try to have shade for everything if we can. The other thing, these lots will get a little muddy in the wintertime, so you see these mounds in the middle of the pens. And so that's just an area where these animals can get up out of the mud if we experience some real muddy conditions. So it's got to be within reason. We can't bring every single one of these animals up. I remember the first time we had a bull test and a consignor called me. It was raining that day, and she wondered if we were going to bring her bull up and put it in the barn so it wouldn't get out in the rain. And I said, no, ma'am, we don't do that. And so the reality is the rain's not going to bother them. But, we can't baby every one of these animals. By the same token, we're going to try to keep them as comfortable as we possibly can. That's the right thing to do from an animal welfare standpoint. And the more comfortable the animals are, the better they'll perform for us economically. So what we have behind us here is some electric fencing, and there's a lot of different systems or materials you can use for fencing. Traditionally, most all of our fences with beef cattle were wood, and then like this is metal fencing here. A lot of our wood over the years has been replaced by metal, and metal's good. It's very expensive. It is very permanent once we get it in. The one thing I don't like about metal is that animals that run into a metal fence, then, you know, it can be kind of damaging to them in terms of injury to the animals. And so it's got its positives and negatives. This is electric fencing right here. The nice thing about electric fencing, it's way, way, way cheaper than metal. And then we can have animals, like we can have bulls and heifers on the opposite side of the fence. And this is a total different barrier. Metal or a wood fence is what we call a physical barrier. So when animals come to that fence, they're going to evaluate whether they can get under it, through it, or over it. Electric fencing, now once they hit it, they don't know what it is at first, but it doesn't take them very long, is once they hit this fence, there's about 8,000 to 10,000 volts on it. It won't kill you, but I guarantee you won't be excited about coming back and grabbing it the second time. And it's the same with the animals. And so once they get shocked, then that's a total different barrier. It's a psychological barrier. And this is pretty substantial. But we could do the same thing with two wires that are about this height right here. It would be just as effective as this fence you see right here. We could, with fence line weaning, what Professor Gansey was talking about, is traditionally with weaning, our cows would be out in the pasture, the calves would be up here. We'd put them in a dirt lot, they would bawl, they would generate dust, it ends up in their lungs, makes them more prone to respiratory problems. And the cows and calves would be very stressed because unless you've lost a parent, you don't really understand what weaning is to the animal. You know, weaning is since the day they were born, mom was right there by their side. All of a sudden that came to an end. And so with fence line weaning, then what we can do is we can have the calves on one side of the fence, the cows on the other. They have nose-to-nose contact. They'd like to get some more milk. I mean, that's ice cream, and they're not getting, you know, breakfast and dinner the way they are used to getting it. But still, they find comfort in knowing that mom's right there. So we drastically reduce the stress associated with weaning, and consequently, the animals stay much healthier. The other thing we're allowed to do is we're able to keep, it's actually that next fence line right there is where we typically wean, and then the calves are still on grass, which they're used to. When we bring them up to a dusty lot, and we can water down the lot, but then the calves would get switched over nutrition and they'd be missing mama all at the same time. So a lot of stress. Consequently, we'd have a lot of problems with health after weaning. So we've drastically reduced the incidence of health problems that we experience by going to pasture weaning. It's been a big improvement.
So just kind of switching topics a little bit here, Dr. Perry, I think probably you can see some of it as you stand around. There are a lot of pigeons that are kind of circulating around this unit and on the farm. And we have a 1,000-acre working farm here with all species of livestock. So for all of you students, a lot of opportunities if you want some great hands-on education. But I'm going to ask Dr. Perry to talk a little bit about the problem of pigeons and why it's such a liability here on the farm at Fresno State.
Yeah, pigeons are really bad in terms of spreading diseases. So what happens is after we feed the animals, they'll come in, they defecate on the feed. And so, you know, it's really no different than us. Like, we look at these animals just like we do ourselves. And so it's not that we're trying to kill all the pigeons in the world. That's not our goal. But basically, you know, the way we see it is when they come in, they defecate on the feed that's in the feed bunk. That's no different than them defecating our bowl of Cheerios in the morning. So we wouldn't like that. We wouldn't find it very appealing to eat the Cheerios after they defecated on it. Cattle, it's the same way. So, you know, they spread disease, it's an economic deal, and it's just not the right thing for the animals. So we try to keep the pigeon population in check. We're never going to get rid of all of them, but we try to just keep it in check.
The other thing you can see beyond Dr. Perry behind him is we have a poultry research facility, and so that is an environmentally controlled unit which houses about 20,000 broiler chickens. And so we try to make sure that we limit the contact of birds outside with the birds inside, so we decrease the amount or the chance that they are going to transmit diseases between one another.
The other thing today, even though I don't know what today is, what, maybe 80 degrees or 85, I don't know
About
what it's supposed to
85, 86.
Yeah. So these animals are actually probably hotter at 85 today than what they'd be at 95 or maybe even 100 in the summer. And the reason for that is these animals have started to grow hair. And so photoperiod is what impacts or controls hair growth in these animals. So as the days start getting shorter, these animals start growing hair in preparation for winter. And so, you know, the nice thing for us is, like I had a light jacket on this morning, some of you may have had that. You can put a light jacket on in the morning, you can pull it on in the afternoon, we pull it off. Well, animals can't do that. So like these animals that may look just a little bit heat stress to you, it'd be like right now if you were wearing that light jacket right now, none of you are. And so even though you may have had it on this morning. So this is the time of the year when we will fight the environmental conditions more than anything, because we have cool nights and yet hot days. And so this will be a bigger challenge for us many times health-wise than a hot summer day, because these animals, like I said, have already started to hair up and the nights are getting cool. So if we have more than a 40-degree swing in temperatures between the nighttime low and the daytime high, then that's when we start to create some challenges for us health-wise, because the animals get sweated up during the day and then they get chilled at night. And those are the animals that are very prone to getting sick.
Well, I think we are about out of time, and so I'd like to thank Dr. Perry for spending a few moments with us out here at the beef unit. And if
You're very welcome.
Thank you. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Please contact me via email, text me, and I'll get right back to you.